many these days?
Yes, yes. I think we have 12 of them while we're down here this week, okay? All right, this is an interview at the Westbury Public Library, Westbury, New York. It is the 10th of August, 2006, approximately 10:45 a.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Ignatious is the first name. Quartararo. 7/26/26 is the birth date. And born in New York City.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I was my first year of college.
Okay. Do you remember where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes. We were visiting a family in southern New Jersey, farmers, and we heard on the radio that morning.
What was your reaction, do you recall?
Well, I think like everyone else, there was a combination of fright and anger and bewilderment, I suppose.
Okay.
Didn't know what was going on or what was going to happen next.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted in a program that was specifically made for people who weren't old enough to be drafted. You know that there was an Army Specialized Training Corps, ASTP, Army Specialized Training Program. There was also an ASTRP, which is the Army Specialized Training Reserve Program, which permitted people to sign up in the Army at age 17. So prior to being draft bait, if you were anxious enough to go about this business, you could sign up. And that's what I did. And the intention then was the ASTP program, you know, was to produce professionals for service. And the idea with the reserve program was to get you started into that. So I was sent to Cornell University. I had been at NYU as my first year. And I was sent to Cornell to continue my college education with the ASTP program.
Now, was that in January of '44?
That's in...
or it was earlier?
No, I graduated high school in January of '44.
Oh, okay, and then went into this program.
I enlisted on the 29th of January. I had to write this down because I wasn't going to remember. I enlisted on the 29th of January of '44.
Okay. So you went right from high school into this program then?
I went from high school to NYU.
NYU, then this program. Okay.
And then the program, yeah.
Okay. What kind of courses or field of study did they give you at Cornell?
It was a general arts and science program, first year college program, English, history. I think I continued my German lessons there too. The most fascinating course was geography. I remember that most clearly.
Why?
Weather,
Oh, okay.
geology, a fascinating field. At one time I tried to get a Delphi to construct a course that would be like that. And they couldn't do it because they didn't have the wherewithal to put this all into one place. Nobody studies geography as geography anymore.
No, you're right.
It was something we studied as kids in elementary school, maybe high school. But at the college level, it's broken up into meteorology and geology and astrology, I guess, whatever. So we were there and we were in uniform, we were in cadets uniform. There had been a strong ROTC program at Cornell. And because of some previous experience that I had, I was the student commandant of my year, of my class. And we lived in dormitories there at Cornell. And essentially we were in the Army. We had a captain, an Army captain who was in charge of us, and we had a couple of old Army sergeants who ran us around. And it was like being in the military, except that you were at school. Yeah.
How long were you there?
I went on active duty on the 20th of September. So I really spent the semester and a half. I spent the spring and the summer semester, and we did about a year's work. Later on, when it came time to get credit for that, I think I had a year's credit when I got back to NYU.
Now, did the program end, or?
No. Back up a little bit and think of what was happening in in 44. Battle of Belgium.
Mhm.
So they needed people.
So programs like this, now I was 18.
Mhm.
I had become 18 in July, so I was already eligible. So I went from there to Camp Blanding in Orlando, Florida for infantry basic training, which was a considerable change from Cornell University. We lived in sand, we ate sand, we slept in sand, kept rifles clean of sand, everything was sand, and wild pigs.
Now, how long was your basic?
What was basic? 3 months maybe?
Mhm.
At the end of that, when people were starting to move out, I was transferred to Fort Bragg, and I went through field artillery training, field artillery basic training, which I guess was another 3 months, and did, what was it called? Well, because I was a college student, I figured I could use a slide rule and a ruler and a pencil. So I did fire control. That's what the category was, fire control for field artillery. And from there we shipped out after that basic was over. And I didn't put down the date that I left the country, but my Continental service was a year, a month, and 6 days. I think it was off the discharge paper.
Mhm.
My foreign service was 5 months and 18 days. I think we figured out from service. I arrived in Europe via the Repel-Deppel system, the replacement depot system. We left New York from Drum. No, what's the other one? Upstate.
Fort Drum?
No.
Smith.
No. Okay. We left there by train, came down to New York Harbor, and boarded the luxury liner, Queen Elizabeth. In addition to myself, there were 17,999 other GIs.
Was that Camp Shanks you were thinking of?
Could have been Shanks, yeah. Upstate somewhere, Westchester?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Shanks.
yeah. Drum is way up. Drum
Yes.
is in Rome, New York.
Watertown.
Watertown, yeah. So we had a luxury cruiser, Queen Elizabeth, 18,000 of us. We slept in the garage deck where we were 6 high in collapsible canvas frame beds. And all of the artwork and woodwork in the Elizabeth was covered over with plywood so it wouldn't be damaged. And we had meals, we had breakfast. When you finished breakfast, you got back online for lunch. And we enjoyed British mutton. And the nice thing about the Queen Elizabeth was it could go across the Atlantic unescorted. You were escorted for a period of time by destroyers, and then I understand every 6 minutes they changed course and zigzagged across the ocean, because that's how long it took a submarine to sight on it. So if you had to be walking or climbing a ladder, at the time of the zig and the zag, you went like that. I remember that very vividly. And the tureens of mutton slid across the tables every time there was a zig or a zag. It was a fascinating trip. Half the guys were sick. The other half didn't know enough to be sick. So. And we got to the Firth of Forth, which is in Scotland. So we came down by train to where did we leave England? I think we went across the channel in a boat that rocked like hell, and we slept in a hammock. 2 nights, I think, just going across the channel. And went in and boarded trains and took the Repel-Deppel system down through Luxembourg, I guess. We were in Liège, Belgium. I went down south through Nancy and Metz and saw all the bombed out cities behind us. And finally wound up in the area of Nuremberg in Germany, and attached to a 736 field artillery unit, which was an 8-inch howitzer outfit that was part of the 20th Corps 20th Corps recruited Patton's Third Army. And that was his front, that was Patton's front. After the bulge was over and he was running to Czechoslovakia. And the first impression was we were out in the mud someplace on a farm road, and there was an outfit dug in, and there were a Kentucky Field Artillery National Guard outfit that I joined. And we had a sergeant who had a red handlebar mustache that big. He was a character. And I push shells. You load a little carriage, a little hand carriage with an 8-inch howitzer shell, and you stand in mud up to your buttocks. You sleep in mud. And because we were in the back, we weren't on the line, of course. We had food, but it was prepared in the big garbage pails with the portable stoves. And that was mess. And we shaved out of our helmets. And we bathed out of our helmets. And on May 8th, the war ended.
How were you accepted by the unit? Being Southerners and also your replacement?
By then it was mixed.
Mhm.
By then it was mixed.
Mhm.
They had plenty of replacements by then. It wasn't a high casualty outfit because it was field artillery and it was back, because it was corps artillery, it was back far enough. If it had been division artillery, it would have been different. I didn't have any problem. I met and mingled with a couple of other people who had been to college or were getting ready to go to college, and we had our own little group. But I enjoyed the experience. I had had no previous experience with Southerners or with Southwesterners, and I began to learn all about San Antone and everything that went with the Southwest culture. And you learn about a lot of interesting things in the Army. You learn what a butt can is. Who the hell know what a butt can was? But that was not a problem. That integration went well. We wound up in Passau, which is on the German-Austrian border, I guess, on May 8th and May 9th when the war ended. And from there we moved back. At that time, the biggest concern that the population had was not the American troops, but the Russian troops. They were frightened that the Russians would come across and wipe them out the way they had done to the Russians.
Was there a lot of celebration when you got news that the war ended in Germany?
Yeah, yeah. We were nothing like the pictures of Times Square, but nonetheless, I think it was relief. But we knew something else. We knew that somebody had to go to the other side. We'll get to that. And they moved us back into the Munich area, just south of Munich, in an old mill where they actually still ground grain. The Millstone, as wide as his room, I guess. And our role was to protect that so that the people could continue to have food and that it wouldn't be overrun by the Russians. And that mill had adjacent to it a Hofbrau, an inn, restaurant on the first floor, rooms on the second floor. And the people who ran it realized that we weren't there to harm them, that we were there to protect them. So we wound up moving into the inn, into the Hofbrau, which meant that we had fresh eggs and fresh chickens, and every morning when we awakened, our uniforms had been washed and pressed overnight and were laid out for us. It was a good experience. I had a chance several years back to go back and visit the same area. It looked exactly the same. The mill was still there. The Hofbrau was still there. People were still there. Didn't change a hell of a lot in 50 years. You know?
So did you ever encounter the Russians at all?
Yeah, we knew there were Russians around, and mostly they were drunken bastards who were wandering around, didn't know what they were doing. They were not any threat at all. There was no organized threat.
Right.
Apparently that line had been drawn and was observed. Just as we didn't go bothering them, they didn't come bothering us. Actually, by this point, we had moved further west, so we were off the border. We were back in Munich, and Munich was not on the line.
Right, right.
So from there, well, we were there for a couple of months, and we got shifted around, and we joined the 45th Infantry Division, Thunderbirds, Texas outfit. And we moved up to Le Havre. And we were put on a boat. And we were going to Japan. This was May, the end of May, early June, I guess, by now. I didn't make a note of that date. But we were there on August 10th. When was the bomb? 10th or 11th?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The surrender came on the 15th, I think.
Right.
15th was VJ Day. I think the first bomb was the 10th, and the second one, I think, was the 11th. One was Hiroshima, one was Nagasaki. That's when we celebrated.
All right. How did you feel when you heard about the bombs? Just
We had estimates then that there were going to be big casualties.
yes.
And the 45th Division was already earmarked to go in because they had had the experience.
Now, did they send you home from Europe for a leave or anything, or did you go
No.
directly to the
We went-
Pacific?
No, we didn't go to the Pacific. We never got to the Pacific.
Okay.
We were in Le Havre. They took us to Camp Swift in Texas with the 45th
Okay.
Division. And the 45th then moved on. I don't remember where they went, but the 2nd Infantry Division came in. That's the Indian patch, patch. And we were assigned to them for a while. And at that time, the war was over. Things were getting squared away. I wound up at Fort Sam Houston for separation. That's in Texas. And separation was on April 13th, 1946.
Now, were you ever aware of the concentration camps?
We saw them.
What was your reaction?
By then, the photographs were common. The hate was there. You know, you were fighting Germans after the war. But I don't think it get a hell of a lot worse. We knew what we were getting into. We went by Dachau, and they had just been liberated. Really, I guess it was the Third Army. I don't remember who liberated Dachau, but it wasn't much before we got there. And more so than the concentration camps, which we had been, I think, overfed. The pictures of the stacked bodies over and over. I think more impressive than that was the two things. One was seeing bodies lying on the road as we were moving from place to place, seeing dead bodies on the road, dead Germans. And the other thing is the refugees, and displaced people. I think that was the saddest part of it, because these people were pushing a cart that wasn't any bigger than that table, and they had piled up everything they owned, including kids. And these people were just running. They were all headed west, of course, away from the Russians, away from Poland, away from Czechoslovakia. And we rolled along. We lived, while we were in the artillery outfit, we lived on what was called an M1. It was a prime mover. It was a big, might tell you something you know? The M1? It looked like a big truck. Almost a Hummer, 4 times the size of a Hummer. But that's what pulled the guns. But there were also facilities within that truck for duffel bags, and so we actually were living. This was a mobile home, a mobile home pulling an 8-inch howitzer. So we would be rolling along, and by that time, of course, most of the opposition was gone, and we'd be rolling down roads, and these poor people would be running away from the battle line, and running away from the Russians, and running away from whatever the hell they were running away from. But that was the sad thing. Thousands of people on the road, going someplace. I'm just reading a book by a fellow named Judd, J-U-D-T, Tony Judd, who's a British teaches at NYU, called The History of Europe after 1945. And he touches on a lot of this, the displaced people and the occupied people, and what happened to all of these governments after the war and the role the United States played in it. It's a very encouraging thing to read what this country did. Not only the Marshall Plan, but IMF and all the money that was poured in to have these people salvaged over there. But they had nothing left, really. And we lived out in the field with the field artillery. And we met people. Because I had studied German, they said I was the interpreter. So we went to a little town in Germany, and it was very picturesque, southern Germany, Bavaria. Very picturesque, the rolling hills, and there's a little town with a church steeple in the middle of it, and you go a couple of miles and there's just fields, and there's another little town with another church steeple, and every time we got near a town, we'd have to meet with somebody, the Bürgermeister, the mayor. It was my job to speak to him. Usually he could speak Italian and I could speak a little bit of Italian, and my German wasn't that good, so we conversed in Italian, which was an oddball kind of thing. But these people were frightened. You see, you know, a couple hundred people coming at you with guns, and they need to be reassured that we weren't there to harm them. At this point, the war was over. Things were settling down, and we were nicely treated. I have no memories of being badly treated by the German people. We were in an agrarian area. They were farmers. I don't know if they even knew what the hell was going on in the rest of the world.
You mentioned on your form that you filled out that one of your memorable experiences was a weekend in Paris.
That and displaced persons.
Yes, yeah.
Did I say displaced persons?
No, you didn't. You said weekend in Paris.
Well, we had a pass from Le Havre, and we went down to Paris, and it was obviously a GI city. There was nobody else there but American soldiers. But the interesting thing was we tried to get into the Folies Bergère, which was the classic French show, of course. But we couldn't get into that, so we went to the other one, which was Casino de Paris. I think it was the second-rated one. And the little French ladies who escorted me to the seat only knew enough English to say, "Tip for me, tip for me." That was typically. And we saw some of the ladies of the night, I guess they were called ladies of the night then, and they were very anxious to have American troops there because there was money. And they were living pretty well by that time. Paris obviously had been liberated a long time by then. And it wasn't bad. We were well treated. We had no problems there. But it was interesting because when we went back, as I said, when we went back to Munich, we also went through Paris. And I remember the same corner, the bistro or cafe or whatever it was on the same corner where we had been. But the world doesn't change that a lot in 50 years.
Did you ever get to see any USO shows? Time in service.
I have to say no offhand. Must have been something. Must have been some entertainment somewhere other than Paris. I don't remember any big productions, you know, the Bob Hope kind of thing. That doesn't ring a bell at all.
After you left the service, did you make use of the GI Bill?
Yes. Greatest thing this country's ever done. I went back to college, I went back to NYU, and from Washington Square, then to graduate school, I went on to dental school at NYU. I also used the GI Bill when I set up my office to make a loan, to set up the dental office. Did I use it for my mortgage? I don't remember whether I used it for the house. I don't think so. But there were other aspects of that GI Bill. There's that business of, I guess that's Nassau County. Veterans exemption based on dollars that you received either from life insurance, dividends and whatnot. So all of that played in very successfully.
Did you ever use the 5220 club?
Absolutely.
Max it out?
Absolutely. No, I had to go back to school. I was separated in April, and I went back to school in September. No, I went back to school over the summer. I went to summer class that first summer back. So I didn't max it out. No, I may have been able to. I could have been in school and had the 5220 club because I wasn't working. But I was getting $75 a month, I think, as a student. Is that right? Does that sound right?
I think so, yeah.
that's what it
$75
was,
a month, and the tuition, paid part of the tuition. I know my father was happy with the plan.
yeah. Did you join any veterans organizations at all?
Not yet, I'm too young for that.
Okay.
I hang out with all these old men.
Did you ever, I know you went into the replacement system, did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
I did for a couple of years, and then we all kind of spread out. And it was interesting because it was with that outfit that I was with, the 736th, because there was a Southern outfit and mixed. While we tried to stay in touch, I think these guys were all over the country, whoever's still alive. It was really a mixed group of people from across the country. We had California school teachers in the outfit, as well as Mexican immigrants. You know.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, I think the biggest advantage lies in the homogenization of the country. You become a little less provincial when you meet these people from across the country. And I can't imagine another situation where you might meet this many people in a given time. You know, you would go to school from New York, you go to school in Michigan, and you meet a lot of people from Michigan across the country, right? But I don't think that's the same exposure that we had with the mix, you know. And I think it probably contributed in a way to a better sense of what the country was about. The word parochial, I guess, is the idea, you know. We laughed at a lot of the Mickey Mouse that went on with the Texans, you know, and we laughed at some of the Southern boys with their heavy drawls, but nonetheless, we were exposed to it. Whether we laughed or not, we were exposed to it as part of a learning process. So that was good. That was good. I think it was good for the country. That combination of that and the GI Bill, what else you could ask for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your interview.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
One more question.
If you hold this up in front of you and tell us,
Oh.
I know it says where and when, but where and when was that taken?
I don't know. Oh, I do know. This was at Cornell. Yeah, that's the one of the dormitories. Yeah. Yeah.
If you hold it up a little bit, I know
Yeah.
you
Okay.
focus on it.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.